Okay, so I've been getting a lot of questions lately about the painting process that I use in order to create painted jig heads that I later tie on and create my hand-tied fishing lures from. Okay, so a final result of that might look something like this after it's tied. Okay, so I'm going to walk through the steps real quickly here. What you need for this is, of course, your paints. I use what's called a fluid bed. This is something that I made to levitate the paint. Okay, now the reason that you want to levitate the paint is that it comes in jars like this, and you can, no doubt, use and dip just directly in these jars and get some pretty decent results. But if you're dipping hundreds of lures, what you'll find out is that this stuff gets really kind of dense. The weight of it compresses itself down, and you have to continually stir this to make it light and fluffy. Okay, about every 10 lures that you dip in here, this stuff will weigh itself back down, and then you won't get such even results, and you end up actually wasting a lot of paint. Okay, so what a fluid bed does is force air underneath that paint, causing it to rise up and lose its gravitational pull. You call it a fluid bed because inside the cups here, it actually looks a lot like a fluid. Okay, you also need a heat gun. This is a Warner heat gun that I bought years ago for a painting project here at my home. You don't need an expensive one like this. Harbor Freight carries one for like $14.99. You just need one with 2 settings. And if you're dedicating it to this, you'll only use the first setting on it. A set of hemos that click into place, come in real handy. Something to hang these on when you're finished. Okay, and of course you're going to need the jig heads that you're going to paint. Okay, I'm going to turn on all my equipment and get everything started. Okay, when I put these on here, I clip down on the hook end and just snap it in place. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and plug in my pump for my fluid bed. Start that up. It's actually a pretty quiet pump. I just have it vibrating on top of a board or something back there. There we go. Okay, I'm going to paint these chartreuse green. Okay, so I need to remove the cap on my green paint first. Then I'm going to open its valve until I see that paint start levitating and circulating around in the cup. Okay, I'm also going to use a UV top coat. Now the UV top coat I put on after the curing process. And the reason I do this, I think I might have a couple of them here that were done before. What I've learned is that during the curing process, that UV coat likes to drip down a little bit, okay, and it becomes kind of like a sag on the lures. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat gun on. Okay, you're going to preheat your lure, and then you're going to dip in the paint. Okay, when I dip in the paint, I always make a figure 7 in the paint. Okay, as you push it through the paint, it's going to push that paint away, so it's not coating the backside. So therefore, you don't want to come back this way because you're going in that same path you created. So turn and come down, and you'll find it'll evenly coat. Okay, so I usually rotate around, make sure I make like 3 full rotations. A small lure like this doesn't take very long at all to get the right amount of heat. And then, okay, and that's really all there is to it. One of the things I want you to notice is that lure eye is still open. Okay, I still pop the paint out of these before I cure them. Okay, but I'm pointing that out because painting this way gives me a very thin coat, and that's exactly what I want. And I want that thin coat on there for a couple of reasons. Okay, for one, it does make it more chip resistant. People think putting a thicker coat on is going to make it more chip resistant, and that's not true. It loses a lot of its flexibility when it's on there thick, okay, and it'll chip and break off a lot easier. And then, of course, the thinner the coat, the less paint you used, okay. And I just hang these on my rack over here, let that cool down. Flip my next one. Normally I'd keep the gun on all the time. Give it about 3 rotations. Some guys use propane torches. I've seen other guys use candles. The heat gun really gives you the most even heating of all of those, okay? A little awkward. This is not normally the place that I'd be standing. Just one more time. Heat in a circle 3 times around. A little bit more if you're going 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce, 3/8 ounce. Bigger jig heads require a lot more heating, but you don't want to overheat it either. If you see the paint smoke, okay, like that one actually got a little overheated. It's not a problem on this one though, okay? With some colors of paint that might discolor the paint a little bit. Okay, now my next step before curing is to make sure I use a jig eye popper and I pop the paint out of that eye. Now there's not going to be much in there because once again we got a nice thin even coat. Okay, if you cure these before you pop those out, you're going to have a heck of a time getting that paint out after you cure them. Okay, and that's the purpose of the curing, is that it toughens this paint. Okay, but I like to get them nice and cleared out. Make sure that they're, like that one is right there, make sure that the paint's pure completely out of the jig eye. Make sure you cure them first. Okay, now I'm preparing these for an order for someone, so I need a dozen of these. I'm gonna pause the camera and come back later when I'm on the process of curing them.